Welcome, everyone, to DEI After 5, the show that focuses on topics across diversity, equity, and inclusion with some of the brightest minds in the industry. Here's your hostess, inclusive culture curator, and coach, Sacha Thompson.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of DEI After 5. This is going to be a phenomenal conversation. Why? Because not only do I have one practitioner, I have two that will be joining me for this conversation. And this is a conversation we haven't had yet on this show, right? So we are also going to continue talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. But today we're going to talk about recruiting. And so I want to welcome my two guests, Dia Harris and Jennifer Arnau. So welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yay, I'm so excited to have this conversation. So I want to start off by first introducing yourselves, right? Who are you? Tell me how you got into this work. So Jennifer, I want to start with you.
Sure. So I'm Jennifer Arnau. I've been in the diversity recruiting space for about 12 years now, and a good thanks to Dia because he's been influential in how I am where I am today. I've worked across various industries, banking, insurance, and worked a lot with campus recruiting in the student space, which is where I started. Based in New Jersey, a mama of two, and really excited to be here.
Thank you. And Dia.
Hello.
Tell us about yourself. Yes.
Hey, I'm Dia Harris, and I'm a director of recruiting currently right now, and I've been actually in the DEI space for about 20 years. In various roles. It started off in higher ed, actually doing recruiting and focusing on diversity candidates, and then making my switch to the dark side, as I call it, the corporate sector, and kind of recruiting, and as well as DEI. Not only was I intimately involved with recruiting throughout my career, but I also served as senior program managers for diversity, equity, and inclusion too throughout my career. I'm currently, like I said, a director of recruiting at a Fortune 500 company, and I love what I do. I think, you talk about how do I get involved in this stuff. I was born to be in this position. I'm a Black male, and once again, like I said, I was born to be here, and I've met some great people throughout my career that really have influenced me, such as Jennifer herself. We've known each other for years, and I've been in industries such as financial services, healthcare. You name it. I've been in the industry, particularly in the DEI space, but most of my time has been spent in the recruiting space, focusing on DEI.
Wonderful. So I want to just jump right in, right? Because when the three of us spoke a couple of months ago and just trying to get to know each other a little bit better, Dia, of course, we worked at the same place.
At that place. Yep.
Yeah, at that place. We worked at that place. And, we were just having some conversation around there's this uptick in diversity recruiting, but it was almost a superficial thing where it's like, oh, yeah, we need more Black and brown bodies. But then there was no thought beyond that. So talk to us a little bit about kind of what you experienced during that, what I'm going to call is awakening.
Yeah.
In this space, particularly in corporate spaces.
Jennifer, can I start for a second?
Yeah, go for it.
Jump in.
So we all know these things that happened, in 2020. We say it started in 2020, right? But we all know it started way before 2020. But we know of all of these incidents that happened in 2020. And then all of a sudden, these organizations said, hey, we're going to step up. We're going to diversify as much as possible. We're going to do this and do that. Here it is, 2022. And my thing is like, who's holding them accountable for what they said in 2020 and stuff? And so everybody's raising their hand. We're going to diversify. Our executive leaders, we're going to double the number of people of color that are leaders in our organization. One organization I was in, they said they're going to double their executive leaders, their Black executive leaders. Wasn't that hard when they only had one? So that wasn't that hard at all and stuff. And so my concern and issue is that who is holding those organizations accountable now for everything that they said in 2020, because the momentum has died. It has truly died. And so I truly believe that organizations want to diversify, but once again, we have to question why. Is it for business purposes, or is it for the gratification of that they need to serve a larger purpose? They know that diversity serves a purpose in a larger space besides them making money from it, because their clients are asking for it. So we need to start really holding them accountable. And I definitely want to focus on that, the accountability of that, and our businesses being held accountable for this diversity, equity, inclusion that they say they want to do, particularly from events from 2020.
Yes. Sorry, I didn't mean to jump in with that one, but yeah.
That's okay. We all knew those stats, right?
It was one.
The one.
I had it on speed dial. So I'm just like.
Exactly. And I didn't even know they existed.
Well, yeah. Woo. Jennifer, so what are you, what was that experience, or what has been that experience? Dia pointed out 2020, everyone wanted to do this, and now it's kind of trickled down. Like, what are you seeing?
Yeah, I think it's a variety of things, right? And I think a lot of organizations focus a lot on the entry-level pipeline, and that's because it's the easiest, right? If you think about where the variety of diverse talent and where you're going to find them across their career cycle, the larger populations, you're going to find that early career coming out of college. So everyone's college recruiting, interns. But then what are you doing to keep them? Are you even retaining them? What programs do you have in place for them to actually develop and stay? And I think we're in a candidate marketplace. If there are not tools and programs in place to keep that early talent, they're jumping. I'm seeing it everywhere. People are not staying at companies for more than a year sometimes. I mean, you're just like, back then it was frowned upon, but now you're just seeing it. Oh, a new update. Oh, a new place. Oh wow. Like I think that there's a lot of great energy toward it, but I think that there really has to be a true focus on what we're doing to keep that really good talent that you just spend hours and hours and hours recruiting, but to keep them there in order for them to develop and grow into that new pipeline, right? Into your leaders, into your executive C-suite level folks. And I think that that's where that mix is. Like we don't have enough things in place for them to make it.
You touched on something just now that I think is critical, is a critical piece of this conversation, right? There's this effort to bring people in, but what's happening to keep them there, right? And so there's the saying, and I had someone say this to me not too long ago, is when you are trying to bring a new organ, right? You're doing an organ donation, and you're trying to bring a new organ into the body. You have to prepare the body so that the body doesn't reject it.
Yep.
And so I look at diversity recruiting as a part of that, right? Your job is to bring folks into this new body, but the body has to be prepared in order to ensure that that person is successful in that space, right? And so as in your roles, what role do you play in kind of making sure that that takes place?
Sacha, I think one of my old sayings is that, something that my grandmother used to say: before you invite guests to your house, you need to make sure your house is cleaned and prepared for guests and stuff. And so it's really important that you do this for the right organization, because I am not one that want to do the bait and switch almost, bring young, bright, brilliant candidates into an organization, and then it's bait and switch. Dia, it's not what you told me. I'm having issues. I don't see people who look like me. So one of the things I always want to talk about, that, my role as well as Jennifer's role as director of recruiting, is that we have to do three different things. We have to attract the candidate, we have to work on retaining the candidate, and we have to help with promoting as well. We want to see them rise to become leaders, because if they become leaders, it's an easy story for me to sell the organization, to say, look, people like us are, being successful here. And so it's an easy recruit for me. I can show them the fruits of our labor, to say people of color are succeeding here. They're doing well. But if you don't have an organization where they don't, like Jennifer said, have programs to help retain them, and do other things, then you're going to fail. There's certain programs outside of my full-time job. There are other things that I do. There's transition programs that I work with at one of the historically Black colleges. I won't kind of name which one, but I work with them and they help transition early career talent from college to the corporate world. And I've facilitated several sessions on that to really help them transition, because they know that inside their organization, sometimes there aren't these safety nets to really help them transition. So we have to provide them other resources that make them successful. So I do help with developing, designing sessions to help them transition into the work world successfully, as well as how to get promoted there as well. Networking, mentoring, and making sure that you have that network of individuals who are going to be your safety net and help transition and help guide you through your career within that organization and stuff. And so there's a lot of things that organizations need to do to make sure that they're successful. Because as Jennifer said, people are jumping, they're not even giving it a year these days and stuff like that. Not even early career professionals, seasoned professionals, they're an environment that is conducive to them and that's going to lend to their career journey and path. And if you're not doing that, why stay?
Right. Jennifer,
you can be going, they can ask you to leave tomorrow. So why can't you leave tomorrow? Your free will.
That part. That part. Jennifer, I want you to talk about some of those programs too, because, one of the things that I have said to organizations, right? They create programs, and honestly, some of them, not all, some of them are a checkbox. Yep. We have this program for emerging leaders. Yep. But it's not tied to succession planning. It's not tied to, how do you help them grow within your organization? It's, yep, we paid for this leadership development program for X, Y, and Z, pat ourselves on the back, and then keep moving. So talk to us a little bit about some of those programs and what makes them successful.
And you know what? It's not even sometimes a program. Sometimes it's just the effort from the leader. I remember working with a leader for a group I was supporting, and he was such a thought, like he was true, like I'm all for this DEI work and I'm going to make a difference for my group. As small of a task of me just sitting in a room with him virtually, right? And on the call with his leaders, and we're just talking about their talent and somebody being there to ask the questions. Okay, how diverse is this pipeline of talent when you're putting them in their boxes of top high potential emerging leader? When are they going to be promotable? And if not, when? And as you're looking at the diversity of them, do we have Blacks? Do we have Hispanics? Do we have females? And asking those questions, and we're like, wow, we're missing a gap here. Like, I want to go 2 levels down and I want to get to know that person. Just something as small as that. So sometimes, yes, to your point, some programs were done very, very well, but it also doesn't take a program to be able to drive that work for your organization. You can do it on your own as a leader, just by having the right questions asked during those talent discussions.
You just touched on, I don't want to say it's my pain point, but it's a huge piece of this, right? We're all practitioners in this space. And I think many organizations feel, oh, we have someone that does DEI, so that's their responsibility. I don't have to do it because I got Dia, I got Jennifer on my team. They're going to take care of it. And one of the things that I try to push is I'm a support system for you and your team, but you're responsible for getting this work done, right? You are the advocate. You are the champion for diversity and inclusion. You should be asking those questions. And so having you in the room to coach them to do that is one thing, but what happens when you're not there? Are they going to continue to do that and ask those questions, right? And so how do you then prepare them to do that? So I want to do a little bit of a pivot, because Dia, one of the things that you spoke about was that retention piece, right? That's so important. And part of that is that experience when they get there. I always talk about it. Is this the Wizard of Oz, where you talk about Emerald City, this beautiful, wonderful place, and then they get there and it's just this little man on a bicycle behind a curtain. Right. And so it's just like, wait a minute, this isn't what you told me. This is not what I'm experiencing. And so how can organizations tap into your roles to help them with that retention piece?
Yeah, yeah. You know what? I go back to my early days in my career when I worked at a college university and I was director of recruiting and I oversaw all of our diversity recruiting efforts. And so I traveled probably 100% for that job. And my job was to get out there and get students who look like me to this private liberal arts college and stuff. And I did an amazing job with attracting the candidates and stuff. But here it is, Sasha. When they got on campus that following year, I was gone. So the first person that they came to look for when they came on campus was me, because they built their trust upon me. Their parents built their trust upon me. Whoever their support system was, they built their trust upon me. Dia, they would say, Dia, I'm sending my child to this college because of you, because of what you said and the support that you said you're going to give them. That college got it right, because what they did, they then changed my position. Not only was I director of recruiting, but I was also associate dean of students. So 1 year I would be on the road recruiting. I had a team of other recruiters that reported directly to me as well, and they all did recruiting. I would be on the road recruiting. That next year when that class came in, I didn't go on the road to recruit. I was dean of students. So I stayed there to welcome them, to help transition them, to be their support system that they really needed and stuff. And so they was like, oh, there's Dia, he recruited me and stuff like that. But I still had a team of recruiters that was on the road recruiting that next class. And we rotated every other year and stuff just to make sure that first year, that foundation year is really important to them. So I always say that college, that they got it right, when they developed that type of system where, that 1 year I recruited, that other year I stayed on campus to help transition and stuff like that. And that's what organizations need to think about doing, because I am out there in the face of the company getting these candidates. I should have to, and it's part of my job, to be honest, also help retain them. But it's kind of difficult for me to do when at the same time, I'm working with my colleagues to say, I need to bring in this next class. We have 600 interns that we need to recruit for our next class. And I need to make sure at least 25 to 30% of that class is as diverse as possible. So, I can't really develop these retention programs or mentoring programs and stuff like that. That's where I do lean on my colleagues, our chief diversity officers that I work with in our organizations and stuff, to say, hey, let me tell you the demographics of this class that I'm about to bring into you and stuff. And this is what I think would be helpful for them to help transition as well as help retain them and stuff. And I think with any person of color, any young professional will want to see a career path. They want to see what direction they can go in and what type of opportunities that they have for them. And if you sell them short, that's when they're going to jump. I personally pull out that road path and say, hey, year 2, you said I was going to be able to do X, Y, and Z. It's year 2.5. What happened? It's not happening.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing really two things. One is organizations, be it higher education, be it nonprofit, be it corporate, need to be intentional in what they're doing in their recruiting efforts, and not just tokenizing, because that's what a lot of folks do. It's, oh, okay, yep, I'm going to send our Black and brown folks to these organizations, and they're trained, but they're not recruiters. They're not it's just butts in seats, and it's not really an intentional part of the process, right? And to your point, it's important for them to see, oh, okay, this is someone I met at this recruiting event, but I also see them thriving within the organization. And if they can do it, I can do it, right? And there's a process that helps them through that pathway. So I'm hearing that, but I'm also hearing that new employees, students, whoever the outreach effort is going toward, also needs to be intentional in understanding what they want out of that process, right? They may not know the entire path, but they will know, okay, I need this type of support, or what type of resources are available to me, those types of things, so that they can start to determine, is this a place where I can be successful?
Right. And sometimes it's the leader too, right? Making sure you have the right leader in place to guide you when you are finding those moments where you're just stuck. And we all go through stuck moments,
Yeah.
We all do, but the leader is going to drive whether you stay or you go.
Yep.
Right.
And what kind of support that they give you.
And
It's something you touched on that really hit me, like tugged at my heart and my soul. You talked about, you're always out there, and that burnout is real, right? When we are the face, we're constantly out, we're out traveling. And I think the really critical piece here is just as much as recruiting is out there all the time, the leaders, be it junior, experience, and senior, they have to be just as visible out to the marketplace too, because that's what makes the difference, right? When you think about culture, nobody can sell the culture of your business and what that group does in the day-to-day better than you, because that's your group. Recruiting, we're the face. We're going to sell it. We're going to say, here's everything great about our organization. Here's what we have to offer. We can sell it. We're sellers, right? That's a skill that we have to have in the recruiting space, being able to sell our organization for people to come and attract them. But our leaders, right? You're the ones that are there day to day. You're the ones who drive the culture. You're the ones who are able to talk about what's working, what's not. And having those conversations are so critical. I remember a student, and I'll never forget this dude. This is maybe a couple years ago. He must have had like 15, 16 offers. He was from like University of Puerto Rico, had so many offers, but let me tell you, he decided to go with the offer that we had for him. And purely when I asked him, and mind you, I was like competing like with a Google offer at the time. So I was surprised that we won him out. And I asked him, what made you decide to pick our offer? Because I knew for a fact our comp was not anywhere near other offers. And he said, honestly, the people that I met made me feel at home. So I knew going to that organization that I had a safe place if and when I would get stuck. And that still to this day hits me, right? Because when they meet people, candidates meet people from the business, wow, like that person stuck with me. And I'm a phone call away. I'm a Zoom message away, whatever. Like, they're so close to us. And that is the critical piece too, knowing that those same people who are out there trying to find you connected, and they're going to either help you make your experience what it could be at your organization. So I think, Dia, to your point, yes, it's important for us recruiting to be out there, but the business, the leaders, they have to be engaged. Don't just recruiting can do it. We could, but it's not going to be the same when they actually meet you as the leaders who are running that part of the organization.
And it's so funny you said that, because it reminded me something I said, which I don't want to offend y'all, but I say this a lot, is no, but it's one of those things, like if you treat your employees well, then you don't need recruiting, right? Because your employees will be the best recruiters that you have.
1,000%.
Referrals. Yeah.
Right. And so it's particularly for people of color, because what we do is we talk amongst each other about what's working, what's not working, what's toxic. We don't put that on Glassdoor. We don't put that on these public places.
Yeah.
Right. But I will have lunch with you and tell you all the grievances that I've had dealing with I had someone email me yesterday saying, hey, I went to this company and I'm already looking for another job. Let's talk.
Exactly.
Right now. But again, I would never put that negativity out, because as a person of color or someone from an underrepresented community, that can also be a ding against you.
Yeah.
Right. We don't have the freedom to speak freely in those spaces. And so if organizations really thought about, okay, yes, recruiting is important, but we need to take that retention piece. How are we retaining? What are we doing to help and support? That just helps you all do your jobs so much better.
And Sacha, that's why it's important where I talk a little bit about Jennifer and I. I mean, we're not only recruiters, we put that hat on, but we also are program managers as well, because with all the programs that I recruit for, I also kind of sit down and talk to them and say, tell me about this program. What are you doing for this person of color that's coming into this program? How are you going to retain them? And so I help them redevelop or redesign that program if I feel as though it's not going to be a program that's going to be conducive to recruiting any type of student and stuff. So not only are we recruiters, we're program managers, we're rotation managers and stuff like that, so we have to serve in many different roles to make sure that we are successful from the beginning. Like I said, those three things that attract, retention, and promotion. We have to work on all three of those things. So we're always multitasking with everything that we do.
Yeah. And the other piece of this that you both touched on is not only are you recruiters, but you're DEI practitioners, right? Like you're bringing that lens to this work. And I think that there's so many people that are in recruiting or HR, some of these roles that are just like, oh yeah, just tack it on. It's not a tack on. Like there's a specific skill set when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion that you need to have as you do this work. And so I want to make sure that that's clear, that, what you all are talking about, this experience that you have isn't just a nice to have. It is baked into what you do as a part of your role. And so that's a critical piece of this, that I think that a lot of practitioners know, but other organizations, other parts of the organization may not know, right? So as a marketer, I was a marketer, but I was a DEI practitioner in a marketing role. And so there was a different lens that I brought to that work. So I'm going to do a little bit of a pivot and ask you, because Jennifer, you touched on this earlier about burnout. What do you do to take care of yourselves? Like, how do you fill your cup? So I'm going to start with you and then we'll go to Dia.
Well, I've been trying to refill my cup because lately I've been struggling a little bit, but I've been actually leaning on my faith. I feel like I disappeared from faith for a little bit, and I'm like, something's got to give to get me back to, my level playing field. So going back to faith was important for me and my kids, like why work so hard and not be able to enjoy the fruits of my labor with my kids, right? So I know at the end of my days, I have my kids. I have my 2 boys, and we're gonna play. We're gonna wrestle. We're gonna play t-ball over the summer. Yesterday I took the kids to the water park, the splash pad out the park after a day of work. That's really ultimately what helps me on those days, and just being aware, so that self-awareness and just being vulnerable, accepting when you need help, leveraging resources. Like mental health resources that my employers have offered in the past, things like that. But definitely faith, family, friends, people like Dia. Like I need a day. I need to vent.
Love it. Dia, what about you?
A couple of different things. I think, like Jennifer said, picking up the phone or sending text messages to people who understand my struggle and stuff, and just kind of, say, hey, I know you know what's going on, or, I know you can understand what I'm feeling. But also, one of the things that brings me joy and energizes me is that I am still connected to candidates that I recruited in the early career that are now like our vice presidents, our directors and stuff. I connect and I stay connected with them, and I say, there's a reason why I do this. And you're that reason. And that gives me so much joy and energy. And then behind that, I'm a huge bourbon drinker. I have an amazing bourbon collection, and I love my liquor. And that brings, at the end of the day, I may have to take a little sipping glass and relax and put it down for the night and restart the next day.
Let me add a little bit with your alcohol.
We're gonna
go jam it out, or we're gonna release all those energies, some salsa, some cognac,
Love it. I love it. And Dia, I was laughing a little bit kind of at your story, because as you were talking about, your early career recruiting, I'm still connected to the person that recruited me to my undergrad.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And when I think about, and Earl, you know who you are. When I think about just like the evolution of life and how, there's that connection has always been there. Both alum from the same place. And, so it's so important that when you see that spark in someone, how that can impact the trajectory of their life and their professional careers and, all of that. So as you were talking, it just kind of reminded me of like, oh yeah, I remember that person really, really well. So thank you. Well, I just want to thank you both for this conversation. I think that, this is a part of DEI that we don't always talk about. And so it's so important that we have conversations around recruiting. Well, we need to have more conversations around this, because it's not just, okay, let's get some butts in seats, but there really needs to be some intentionality around it. So thank you, Dia. Thank you, Jennifer, for being here. Thank you all for watching and listening DEI After 5. Please feel free to follow us, subscribe, like, follow us on LinkedIn, social media, we're on all the things, all the platforms. Really excited to have you and continue this conversation with you. We'll see you next time. Have a good one.